Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, hopefully not good night. Um, my name is Peter Verreken. I'll be guiding you through this webinar today. Let's wait 1 more minute or so for people to join, and then we will get started. So just keep hanging on there. All right, perfect. So it's 2 past the hour, so let's get rolling. Again, welcome everybody to this webinar. In this webinar, we're going to talk about MSP, as you can see, right? So it says Masterclass MSP. So what is the idea of this session is to kind of bring you all the tools required or that can help you in running your MSP backup service way better, right? So maybe there are some things you already heard of, maybe there are some things you've already seen, but maybe you'll get something out of this webinar, right? Let's hope so. Again, my name is Peter Verreken. I'm a solutions architect for the VCSP for the entire EMEA. And before we start, some general housekeeping rules. As everybody knows so far, I guess, you are automatically muted. If you have a question, please use the Q&A or the chat functions. It's highly recommended to use the questions pane because that's way easier to answer, right? And we will also post the recordings and the presentation on the Veeam Pro Partner Portal. You should also receive an email on with everything. I see that there are some comments coming in with the audio not being so well. I don't know. Is this for everybody? Can everybody hear me okay, or the audio is not good at all? Yeah, it's not so good. Not that good. Audio is great. All right. So I see a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, I could say. Okay, well, let's do our best then, and let's continue with the webinar. Let's see how it goes. You will receive the recording for sure and the slides. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So in this webinar, what we are going to talk about is we're going to describe the service, right? So what ends up in an MSP business. We're going to talk about the administration tools. We're going to quickly go over the design, how to build it, and of course, how to operate the service. In the end, we only have 1 hour in this webinar, right? So we can't have an entire day workshop on this. So we will touch on the top things. If you have any questions, I see that with the audio already many of you found the way to the actions to the questions pane, so that's excellent. So please keep those questions coming, and I will do my best to answer them as soon as possible, or if they just pop up on the screen. Otherwise, we will just at the end of the webinar just go through them. All right. So what's an MSP and what's a CSP? Yeah. Of course, maybe you might have a different opinion on this, but generally, what's an MSP, right? From an MSP, we say managed service provider. So it's a service provider that is managing infrastructure from others, right? Could be owned by others, could be not owned by others, but generally it's owned by, let's say, the customer or the client, and then this service provider is managing it, right? Hence MSP. The cloud service provider is more related to the one that is owning the own infrastructure. So my easy comparison would be like infrastructure as a service. You're running your own data center, you have everything in-house, you have customers housing their stuff there, or you're receiving backups, disaster recovery. So you're the infrastructure as a service or cloud service provider, right? But these days we also see quite of a mix, right? It could be and CSP and MSP a bit mixed because we can offer many services. You could all start as an MSP and then in the end also turn out into CSP with their uh, own infrastructure, right? All right. So, key challenges. Um, what are the key challenges as an MSP? Well, we have multiple remote installations. So today, for example, we have Veeam backup and replication at one customer, but maybe we have 10 customers, 20 customers. So that's 10, 20 installations that we need to manage. So how do we manage all of those, right? So we're going to address this today. Yeah. Again, licenses, yeah, all of the solutions deployed at all those remote customers, they also need to be managed and updated, yeah, at least let's say once a year. So then we have reporting. Maybe our customers would like to receive reports on if everything is backed up once a day, yeah, and they would like to get this automated. Well, we could get this done if you want. Yeah. Um, billing. Yeah? Maybe some of you do not have any billing yet in place. Yeah, I suppose if you're an MSP, you already have some kind of billing set up, but we can also help you with that. Yeah? Multi-cloud. Maybe your customer is only backing up on a VMware infrastructure, so that's perfectly fine. But maybe they also have some other clouds or maybe physical machines, or they're also running some workloads in AWS or in Azure or in Google Cloud. We also want to get those into one single overview, actually. Yeah. And then last but not least, ransomware and malware attacks. We could have an entire session on just this one, and we've had several in the past. We also want to take this in mind that when we design something that it is secure and hopefully no one can hack it, nobody can steal my data, or at least that I can bring my customers' data also into multiple places, encrypted, secure, not even accessible by the customer, right? And hopefully also not accessible by any of the hacker or ransomware, right? So we've got a lot of challenges there. So let's have a quick look into the whiteboard. Yeah, so let's just get everything sorted out. Let me bring on the whiteboard here. There we go. So hopefully you can see all that. Um, perfect. Now, let's say that the customer, we have a customer X, right, or client X. Let's just call him like that. And this customer could be running multiple hypervisors, could be running VMware, could be running Hyper-V, let's say could be running Nutanix, could be running something else as well. Yeah. So let's say hypervisors. But that customer could also be running some physical machines, could be some Windows, could be some Linux, could be some other, let's call them just Nix type of servers, right? Or Mac OS, for example. Yeah? So customer could be running all different kinds of workloads. So what we generally put at the customer is, well, we will probably have a Veeam server. So we'll just put a Veeam backup and replication machine, right? That backs up these virtual machines. that backs up these physical machines and stores them onto a backup repository, right? And basically, this is kind of the setup, yeah, very simplified, of course, but this is the setup that can be replicated across all of your different customers, right? Maybe this customer is a little bit advanced, right? And he has also something in public cloud, yeah? So let's say he has something running in AWS or in Azure or in Google, yeah? So let's just call it there in the corner. And this customer also has deployed our solution. Right? We have solutions for Veeam backup for Azure, for AWS, for Google, right? So let's say we just call it Veeam backup. And he also has connected that one to their local Veeam backup and replication installation so that everything can be managed or viewed from a single UI. Yeah, so that's already pretty cool. But now I have 10, 20, 50 customers like this, and I don't want to log in into 50 different consoles to have to check this all the time. So that's really not going to happen. Okay, good. We get that. So that's where Veeam Cloud Connect and Service Provider Console come in. Yeah, so let's say that we have the service provider, yeah, or let's just call it the MSP, right? Since the topic of today's session is MSP, and we will deploy a Veeam Cloud Connect server. Veeam Cloud Connect is basically the same installation as Veeam Backup and Replication. So nothing really special there, just has a different license. That's all. Yeah, so you can only receive backups. Yeah, perfect. So what do we do? What else? What other components do we need? Well, we need some cloud gateways. We need some cloud gateways. So let's say Cloud Gateway 1, Cloud Gateway 2, Cloud Gateway X, for example, or N, because you can have one cloud gateway or multiple cloud gateways. So that really depends on the type of infrastructure, what you're trying to do with it. But you can start obviously with just one, and you can then scale out, right? So now these machines we will put in a DMZ, right? So I'll just put these in red because these machines are going to be connected directly to the internet. That's just how it's going to be. So basically, this Veeam backup and replication server is going to connect to those cloud gateways. And then we are going to have here some management traffic to check, hey, this customer with username and password uh, is this one? Can I come in? Yes. Otherwise, you are rejected, of course. Yes. So it does some authentication. And then, of course, we will be able to see what is going on at this customer. But with Veeam Cloud Connect alone, we don't really have enough. Veeam Cloud Connect only provides, in this case, a secure connection. Yeah. Doesn't provide anything else. So the entire connection is uh, TLS protected or SSL, how you want to call it. Yeah. So this is all secure there. So all the management traffic is good. Now, next is we need a service provider console. Yeah, because the service provider console, that's the one that is going to bring all of the management capabilities here. Yeah. So we will just add in this one as well. And that one also has management traffic into the Veeam Cloud Connect server. Right? I still see some people complaining about the noise. I don't know if it's still the case for everybody, because I see a lot of people that say it's perfect or it's good, and some people say it's not really very good at all. So that's very strange. Let me see if I can do something about that. Okay. Is this better now, or is it still bad, or much better? This is better, very good, way better, pretty good, yes, excellent. Sound is great, oh my God, yes. So it's not a hardware issue, but it's a software issue, right? So, hey, it's always good fixing stuff on the spot there. Perfect, let's go back to our whiteboard here. So where were we? Yes, we've added the Veeam service provider console. I see some people were going to log out. Thank God I fixed it. People are going to stay now. Excellent. Apologies for this. This is the thing with webinars, right? Things come and go. So we have the Veeam service provider console now in there, and that is actually going to be the component the component that is going to bring us all the centralized management in there, right? So let's zoom out a little bit here and move that to the left. So what can I now do with this service provider console? Well, very simple. I can centralize management. Yeah? And let me just minimize that a little bit. So I can do centralized management of my VBR or of my agents or of my public cloud even, right? So I can see all those backups now, yeah, into one single UI. Yeah? I see somebody already asking, where do we need to run the service provider console? That's an excellent question. We'll come to that in a second after the whiteboard. Yeah, perfect. So centralized management is one thing, yeah, seeing all of the jobs, and we're also going to go through that in a demo. Next is licensing, yeah, centralized licensing. Yeah, centralized licensing is something because I have 10 customers, 50 customers, 100 customers. I want to be able to just update their licenses, push their licenses, and that's it. I can do all that straight from the service provider console. So that's perfect. And also I can integrate this with VCSP Pulse. Yeah, maybe some of you have heard of VCSP Pulse. It's let's say something running on our backend, yeah, on the Veeam side, and it integrates with the licensing. Yeah, so basically it allows you to create licenses for your customer on demand. You just go to the service provider console, create a license there for whatever it is you need. 1 minute later, you already have a license there generated and you can push it to your clients. You don't have to engage with any sales or channel or whatsoever. You can just immediately do it all yourself. So that's great. Also, this service provider console, so this web UI, what is it? It's also multi-tenant. Yeah? So you can log in as a service provider, but also your customer can log in. Yeah, your customer can log in on this portal in case they want to check some things. Or for example, you have locked down the entire infrastructure, but you would allow the customer to start a job, stop a job. They can log in and do that. And we also have some more things in regards to reporting and billing. Yeah, some enhancements there. And not to forget, everything that we can do in the UI is available through the API. So if you already have a third-party solution, and this third-party solution, that one can integrate with the API, well, then perfect, you can read out all of the information. Yeah. So 3 components basically to remember here, right? We have the cloud gateways, we have the Veeam Cloud Connect server, which is the VBR, right? Veeam Backup and Replication Installation, and the service provider console, right? So let's go into the design and how to build it in a couple of slides. Just jump back now to our presentation. So as we've seen, we have our service administration tools up and running, right? So on one hand, we have Veeam Cloud Connect that has the VBR console and it has the gateways. On the other hand, we have the service provider console, right? And also you can deploy everything like this for free, right? So if you are just looking into centralized management, from all of your customers and you want to manage the licenses, you can set up all of this with a very minimal setup, and it's all going to be free from a licensing point of view. Of course, it's going to cost some money when it comes to having resources available, because some VMs, some servers need to be deployed, some software needs to be installed. It's going to consume CPU, memory, storage. But let's say from a licensing point of view, it's not going to cost you anything at all. So that's pretty good, right? Then core capabilities. So most of it I've already mentioned here, right? So remote management and monitoring, onboarding, billing, automation, API, multi-tenancy, licensing engine with usage reporting. So it collects all of the licenses from all of your customers. You will see it in a single dashboard, and then it can be reported to Veeam, making your life also way easier, right? And it can act as a self-service portal available to end customers, right? Perfect. Now, before we jump into the design, let's do a quick poll. So can we bring up the poll magically? Yes, there is the poll. So the question is, are you already using the console, right? So the Veeam Service Provider console in your infrastructure? Yes, of course. That would be the answer that I would love to see here. No, but it's in the plans. No, because there are some missing features that prevent me from using it. Or I don't really see much value in it because I only do Microsoft 365 backup. Or no, because, well, there might be another reason. Would be very interesting to see the reason if you can put it in the questions or in the chat, right? So let's just wait a couple of more seconds, because it's interesting to see. We've done this poll, I believe, somewhere a year ago to see the difference, because back then there was a lot of no, it's in the plans and some missing features. And now I see yes, of course, and no, but it's in the plans. So that means that not much missing features there, right? So that's pretty good. Okay, perfect. So let's say a bit more than 50% is using it. Almost 60% is using it already, and 40% has it in the plans. So we still have some work to do, but great. That's maybe why you came to this webinar in the end, right? To check on what you actually can get out of this one. Great. Let's go back to the presentation. Cool. Thanks everybody for answering. See, a lot of questions on the design side on what infrastructure is needed. So we're coming to that part, right? Design. So what do we need to deploy all? Yeah? So, well, on the customer side, it's pretty obvious, I think. Yeah? On the customer side, we could have VMware, ESXi, Hyper-V, Nutanix, could have some physical machines, could have NAS backups, you name it, you got it. Could be also maybe some non-supported hypervisor, right? I had some customers that were using some KVM, for example. We don't support this out of the box with Veeam, but you can deploy Veeam Agent for Linux or Windows in those machines and then still manage them, still back them up, right? So that could also still be a solution. So customer side, I think that should be pretty straightforward, pretty clear for everybody. So then on the service provider side, yeah? Service provider side, again, we have the cloud gateways, we have Veeam Cloud Connect, and we have the Veeam Service Provider. Yeah. Again, this is not the final picture. We're going to get into the how to build, what VMs you need, what resources you need. Yeah, that we're going to talk on that. So hold your horses. And then again, we talk to VCSP Pulse, right? Again, this is entirely optional. You don't have to use it. You can use it. It will make your life easier. If you say no, everything is locked down. We keep our infrastructure as closed as possible. We don't want to open anything to the outside. Okay, fine. Then it's just something you'll have to manually do. Yeah, entirely optional. So this is a simple setup that can be very easily replicated. Yeah, luckily, the service provider side only needs to deploy it once, and all the tenants can be securely connected to your environment. So how do we build it? Maybe the first question on how do we build it is, where do we build it? Because yeah, not everybody has a data center. So maybe you do have a data center and you want to deploy it in-house. You have some VMware or Hyper-V or anything else, and you can deploy some virtual machines there and deploy all of the infrastructure there. Or you want to deploy it in public cloud. There are many partners who just deploy it in public cloud because they only do the MSP part, they don't use anything else, and they just want to see what their Veeam customers are using. And there it ends. Why not? Or you say, I'm not going to go to public cloud, but I also don't want to deploy it in my own data center because I don't have it. So I will go maybe to an existing Veeam service provider that opens it up and adds me there as a reseller. And I will kind of use their white labeling to onboard my customers. That's also something that can be perfectly used. Yeah, and we'll talk a bit more on that on the last slide, actually. So which type of customer can use it? Well, you see here some editions, some versions of Veeam. Basically, the rule is it has to be a paid edition, right? Simple as that. So any paid license can be used, right? So customer must be using any of these paid licenses. Yeah, so obviously it doesn't work with the community edition or a starter edition. Has to be at least a standard. All right. So the moment that I think many of you have been waiting for since when I look at the chat is what's the minimal setup, or how do I properly deploy it? Yeah. Here I've deployed a minimal setup. Yeah, later I will provide you a link to our best practices guide where you can see what is the minimal setup, but what is also the recommended production deployment, right? Because you can scale this out, but it all has to see like if it fits for your type of customers or not, right? Maybe a small infrastructure is fine because you're only doing the monitoring and licensing part. That's fine. So what do we got here? So as you can see, components are still the same. So we have a Cloud Gateway. Cloud Gateway is what? Cloud Gateway is a Windows service. So that should be a Windows machine, physical virtual, generally virtual machine. And we deploy a service on it. That's it. It just receives the incoming connections and then pushes it forward. Simple. Could have one cloud gateway, could have multiple cloud gateways. So those are very easy to add. Add a Windows machine, push the cloud gateway service on top of it, and off we go. Cloud Connect server, so that's the Veeam backup and replication server on the bottom. So that's the one, the core, let's say, where we also create the tenants and everything. That's the used for the authentication. So that one we need to deploy, again, Windows machine. So all of the machines in this case here, so those 4 machines you see are Windows machines. Yeah, let's be clear on that. Then we have the service provider console. That could be server plus UI, but you can also split them off. Yeah, so you could split the server from the UI to have even further segregation and make it even more secure if you prefer, but it all depends how you scale. You can also do this afterwards. You can split them off afterwards, right? You can also start everything on the same machine, yeah? Because I see some people like, can we consolidate this? It's not recommended, but it works, right? You could combine all 4 of them on a single machine. It just means that if something goes wrong with one of the services, everything will fall apart, right? Or maybe you need to do a Windows reboot, everything is kind of offline. It's also just like if you have multiple gateways and one of the gateways, for example, is not working, well, the other gateways are still working, so you can still receive that management traffic, right? Better is just one application per server, just to keep it easy so they don't conflict with one another. And also just from a patching and security point of view, it's highly recommended to split them off. Yeah. Someone asking about the Postgres. Well, we'll have to see at what point. For example, at the moment, the service provider console will still stay on a will still stay on a SQL. Yeah, so therefore the Cloud Connect also needs to stay on a SQL, but that's definitely something that we are looking at. So that's a very good question, right? All right, and then at the customer side, what we need to deploy is, of course, either Veeam Backup and Replication or some Windows agents. And we also need to have a master agent. When you add a Veeam Backup and Replication server, this master agent or management agent is automatically deployed. What this master agent actually does, because maybe some of you have never seen this, is it kind of creates the connection with the service provider console, right? So that allows us to see all of this information in there, right? Again, we can definitely talk a lot about the architecture in this webinar, but that's not the goal of this webinar, right? I will guide you to a resource where you can find all the deep dive information on this specific design, right? Perfect. So let's go further into operate. Yeah, so let's say we have deployed it. Yeah, we've designed it, we've deployed everything, installed everything, we've configured our customers. So what's the next thing to do for us? Yeah, so, well, we can look at the screen and see everything is going fine, right? So we can also do some remote management. Yeah? So we don't have to always go to the Veeam Backup and Replication console at the customer, so we don't have to VPN there or do some kind of team viewer session or something like that. No, some of those things can also be done directly from either service provider console or from Veeam Cloud Connect. Yeah, so some of those capabilities are the remote access console, for example. So you can open up the console at the customer side, but just do it from your chair as a service provider. So that's very easy. Just goes over the same secure connection, but goes back actually. Then we also have remote PowerShell. Yeah, so you could open a browser and do some remote PowerShell there. And also you can do some RDP. Yeah, so that's also something. And from the service provider console, you can do the PowerShell, but also the update and the patching. But this slide doesn't really say a lot of things. So maybe we just go and have a quick look in the lab. So let's have a good look in the lab. So there we go. So I hope that you can read it. If it's too small, then please write it in the chat and I'll make it a bit bigger. So this is what we see when we log into the service provider console. So we can see the alarms, we can see the protected VMs, computers, etc., etc. Right? Because I've added all of my different companies or remote customers. Right? So these are the tenants that I am creating. Great. So remote management we were talking about, right? So let's do that. So first of all, let's go to the console. So on the left, I have a console of a client. On the right, I have a console of the service provider, so the Cloud Connect. Yeah. So I've created a tenant. So I've created the tenant. Let me show you the tenant. It has a username. It has a password. So that's gonna work. So what I need to do at my customer side is generally I open the home page and then I go to backup infrastructure, service providers, and I go to the wizard here, right? So I put in the DNS name, the port, I go through the wizard, username, password, and all is good. But here on the first page, I've got this checkbox that says allow this Veeam backup and replication installation to be managed by the service provider, right? So if I enable this, then I will see all of the job statistics and I will be able to start the job and stop the job from the customer's environment in the service provider console. If I don't tick this box, I will not see anything in regards to this customer in the service provider console. All right. All right. So you can just create accounts right? Because historically, Cloud Connect was used for offsite backup and disaster recovery. So that's why you have here the resources you can assign, but you can also just create usernames and passwords just to connect your customers, just so that you can see them in the console. So once we have our customer, we can see here a bit on the right, we have remote management says available. So I could right click here and say, I want to connect to this backup server over the remote console. So basically the same console that we're seeing here, but it will load all of the information from the customer's infrastructure. Or I could say remote desktop. Yeah, if I just click on it, it will prompt me with the RDP credentials, and I could do an RDP session to the entire backup server and then start up the console there and do my administration that I would like to do. Right? So that's pretty cool. Yeah, you don't need to have another tool, for example. You can do it all through this one as well. Now, in the service provider console, I will remember we talked about the remote PowerShell. So that's also something that we can do. We can go here to Discovery, Backup Servers, click on the backup server from customer number 1, PowerShell session. So it will just load a session into the browser. Yeah. So let's log in quickly and see what happens. There we go. I'm remotely connected to the VBR server and I can execute some PowerShell. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Now, luckily for you, I'm not going to do any scripting here. So I'll just keep it simple. But I could, for example, just have a look at what jobs there are, or maybe you have already pre-created some scripts and you want to create a new job. You could, of course, manually do this, or you could just remote PowerShell, launch the script here, job is created and started automatically. That might save you some work as well. So that's pretty cool, right? So let's quit that one. Perfect. And then also what we can do is we can right click on the server and send some patches. So maybe in the past you had a support case and you received some hotfix or maybe some files that need to be replaced. Then we can push this to the remote backup server. So we can browse for the source file, we can execute then that file, or we can replace these files right on the backup server. So replace a DLL file, for example, and then just push it to this remote server. So that's pretty cool if you think about it. What other stuff can we do here that's beneficial actually to my MSP business? Well, first of all, when I've checked that box of remote management, then I will see here all of the backup jobs. Yeah, so here I see the computers, which are physical machines, but here I can see the virtual machines. So I can see all the jobs here. I can start a job, stop a job, disable a job. I can again do PowerShell session straight from here to the backup server, or download the logs and then maybe open a support case and add the logs there, or do some troubleshooting from this machine. Right. I can also just say, well, show me only the failed ones. Let's have a look at the failed ones, and all the other stuff I'm not really interested in, right? So you can troubleshoot from this part. So that's pretty cool. We can have a dashboard. We see on the dashboard if it's a good day or if it's a bad day. So apparently today, besides the audio, it's a good day. We have 100%. The past few days, we had some issues with backup jobs. Apparently, we have fixed them and things are starting to work out. Yeah. We can also have some active alarms, right? Now, again, this is not an entire monitoring or reporting solution, but it provides you with some useful information. Yeah, so, and again, all of these alarms can be customized. Yeah, so, for example, maybe not everything is relevant here for you, but for example, this one, VMs without backup, that might be a good one, right? So, if we go to configuration, notifications, alarm management, that's where we find all of these alarms. Now we can assign the scope. We can say some alarms I want to see for this customer, but not for that customer. Or I want to have different thresholds, so I can copy them and then assign the different versions to the different customers. Yeah? But for example, let me show something about the license, when the licenses are expired. Yes, that's an interesting one. Or duration, when a job is running normally 2 hours and now it's running 6 hours. So I can set some parameters here, right? So I can say, look, if the job is running longer than 2 hours, give me a warning. If it's 8 hours, give me an error message. So it's not going to stop the job or anything, but you can add an action to it if you want, but it's just to inform you, right? So this can all be enabled, disabled, customized completely for you. And then you can go to the alarms and only see what is actually relevant for you, right? You can see here the number of times this has repeated, because some of them you maybe know and they're not interesting for you. So you just want to get rid of those. Yeah. Then we also have a part on billing. Right, be very short on this part. We have subscription plans that you can use out of the box. You can, for example, create a subscription plan, add a currency, then set a managed backup, like what's the price, right? So let's say here I took euros, then these numbers are going to reflect in euros, right? So for all the workloads we're backing up, and you can see here also backup and replication. So if we're going to expand into other services, then we can easily add the cost for that as well. And then we can run reports, like for example, here we have a billing summary, gonna be seeing if I'm gonna get rich this month or not, right? I will see invoices from my customers, or just reports if everything is protected, yes or no, right? So that's pretty interesting. Somebody asked like, can you show the bills how it looks like? Sure, we can show the bill how it looks like. Let's just see if it opens anything useful. So for example, this one shows some information. Let me just zoom in a bit. So you can change the logo, and then it will show, for example, for managed services, this is what you need to pay, the amount of servers backed up. So all the workloads are there, including the storage that is used when you're doing offsite backup, right? So this is basically what you'll get, and then split even per tier if you want. Yeah. So that's pretty useful. Again, maybe you don't like how the reports look like. Everything can also be customized with the API. Yeah, so that's also something. Then we have the licensing, right? So licensing, here I can see if everything is licensed or not licensed, how much usage that we have. I can run the usage report. So it will collect from all of my customers all of the information, and it will show me something like this. License usage from this month, it says October. So all of the workloads that I've been backing up. So that's in total, X amount of points. And then a split off per customer, per company, and then a further split off on workloads per customer. See? So that's pretty cool, right? Virtual machines, 4 new ones, replicas, 1 new one, and like this, the list goes on, right? So it does all of this automatically. And we can see if all of our backup servers here, Veeam backup and application servers, are licensed. So see my customers here, they're all licensed till 2023. I can see the license units. So this license is for 110 points, and they're using 0 points. Maybe something wrong there. Maybe I need to go and have a look, because maybe none of the backup jobs are running. This one is reporting 48 points, so that looks pretty good. And I can install the license directly from here. I can push a new license, but I can also pull it from Pulse, because I don't want to work with files anymore. I just want to pull it from the system and push it to the customer. Now, where does this come from, this VCSP Pulse? Huh? Well, let's have a look at it. So under the plugin library, we see different plugins. So for our Veeam products, for example, and we also have one called VCSP Pulse Portal. So if we go in here, we can do some company management, license key management. So basically what we do is, behind this is our backend system. and we will synchronize the companies from the service provider console. And yes, this only works with rental licenses, yeah, because it's VCSP. So I have a customer in my service provider console, and I can create this automatically into VCSP Pulse as well. And when they are mapped, then I can assign licenses to them. So here I can create a license. Very cool, actually, because I can say, I need a license with an expire date of this date, or maybe 1 month or 2 months, automatic extension. I want to add some workloads. Let's say I want to add 10 VMs. Next, finish, and this license will be created. Done. Very difficult, right? I will see this license right here, and I can see here it says single customer use. See, so I created this one directly for this customer, and I assigned it to this company, right? Assigned to this client. So therefore, I can also assign it to another client, but then I need to revoke it first. So customer stops paying, I can revoke the licenses even, right? Or remove them. Can also download this file and then manually upload it. But this is pretty cool because then I can go to the screen where we just were into licensing. And I can then say, okay, install from Pulse the latest license, because I don't want to deal with 50 different license files anymore. Just pull it from the system and install it. Cool, right? And as you can see here, we have some Veeam 1 and some VB365 as well. For now, it's only licensing, yeah, but in the future, especially the M365 one, you will start seeing some more information on that as well. I got a slide on that part too. Now, also, if you say we have ConnectWise in place, ConnectWise Manage or Automate, then you can also say, okay, the alarms and the licensing and this kind and the jobs, for example, I want to see all that stuff in ConnectWise. Then you can link it up and you can use that one, right? So it basically uses the APIs to talk to our system. Perfect. So let's go through the slide deck. What's next? Well, once we have deployed all of this, right, and it's actually not that much, then it's all about land and expand. Land and expand in the way of talk to your existing customers. You're managing the backup infrastructure. Do they need offsite backups? Because hackers, ransomware, maybe they need an immutable copy. Maybe you're going to provide a Linux hardened repository or object storage, for example. Maybe they need an offsite copy for compliance or legal reasons, but they don't know. Have you asked, right? Then are they ready for a real disaster? Yeah. Maybe they would like to have some disaster recovery. And if you, as a service provider, also have a disaster recovery solution with Veeam, yeah, and you have your own data center, you can run the service for them. Yeah. Maybe they say, okay, we don't want to manage the on-premises infrastructure anymore. We want to move it to your infrastructure. So they can take it, you can move it with Cloud Connect into your environment and restore it into your infrastructure as a service. Or same for Office 365, and I can continue actually the whole list for all of the solutions that we have. But there is way more things to upsell to your existing customers than you might think, right? So definitely have a look at that part. So how does it look like if we add backup as a service and offsite backup as a service into the picture? Well, as you can see on the right, everything is the same, just on the top, on the bottom right better, we have added cloud repositories. So now customers can send me backup copies and they can store them in my location, maybe 7 days on their location, 30 days on service provider location. And that copy could be immutable on an object storage, on a Linux hardened repository. That's your choice in the end. But it could be a secure copy so the customer knows they will always be able to restore. Then we can also further expand into disaster recovery. And as you can see on the bottom, just something adds because all we need is infrastructure, VMware, Hyper-V infrastructure, and we're done. And then we can start replicating virtual machines from customers' VMware or Hyper-V infrastructure and have them stand by on your infrastructure, right? So that's pretty cool. So the next thing is infrastructure as a service. Yeah. So classic hosting. Yeah. So basically the setup might look almost the same as with the backup as a service and disaster recovery as a service, but maybe you are offering it to tenants within your infrastructure. You could do backups from one data center to another data center. You could do it without Cloud Connect. Some service providers do it with Cloud Connect because then they can create a completely separate fenced off environment accessible only over a single port and send their backups there. Same for the replication, just to not open up this infrastructure even inside the organization, but have it completely separated out. Right? And then at some point you might say, hey, I have quite a nice infrastructure and a quite nice setup here. Maybe I want to onboard some resellers. So I will resell my platform, my Veeam platform, with Cloud Connect and Service Provider Console, and I will provide other partners with this, right? Or maybe you are looking for a service provider who can offer this. That's also an option. So then a few notes on what is coming, right? What's coming in the next version. For Cloud Connect, we'll have the option to do instant VM recovery. So basically, customer can send a backup to your Cloud Connect environment, and then you can do an instant VM recovery into your VMware environment, right? So for very easy onboarding of that customer. Also CDP, so when it comes to near zero continuous data replication, the customer can sync all his data also through Cloud Connect with a minimal RPO of just a couple of seconds. Service Provider Console plus VB365. This is pretty cool. So in the next version, we will be able to add VB365 hosted service, map them to a company, and then also use them for licensing and reporting. But it means that you can set up the environment, give your customer or reseller access, and they can add the organization, they can create the jobs, so you can kind of outsource all the work to them if you want, right? So they can have more insight into the infrastructure. Also, more visibility on Veeam Backup for AWS and Azure. So the appliances you will be able to deploy them, deploy these appliances directly from the service provider console, and they will be mapped to the Veeam Cloud Connect server. So that will make everything easier as well. Then also, when it comes to classic Veeam Backup and Replication, we'll be able to deploy, upgrade, and patch an entire installation. So you have a new version coming out, you can say, okay, go and download the ISO from the website and also install and upgrade it. Yeah, so you can push that out centrally. And then when it comes to agents, if you have customers where they're sending the Veeam agents for Windows, Linux, Mac to your Cloud Connect, they want to do some file level restore, they can log into the service provider console, use it as a self-service portal, and browse for the files that they need and restore them. So I think that's also very, very cool. And that's definitely not everything, but this is everything that fitted on this slide, let's say. But there are many, many more enhancements coming there as well. And don't forget, portability is power, right? So your customer might have VMware today, but might go to the public cloud. Yeah, then you have the tools and the solutions to actually move all those workloads into public cloud and back them up there with another solution from Veeam, right? The licensing part will just follow you. Yeah, so always freedom of choice, always available for an exit strategy because maybe in the cloud customer likes it at some point doesn't like it, wants to come back, or wants to move to your data center or anywhere else. They always have the option to get out of the environment where they are today and move it. Yeah? You as a service provider can use everything for migrations and licenses, like you stop the license for the, let's say, VMware VMs, and tomorrow you have a license, or you just create a new license for the let's say Azure backup, for example, right? So that's going to be super easy. Great. Then we're coming near the end of the presentation, also near the end of the hour. So some useful resources that can help you with this. Yeah, I saw a lot of questions. Some people maybe expected a bit more deep dive and everything, but again, we only have 1 hour. It's impossible to show everything within 1 hour. But we will we'll definitely do some other webinars, so no worries. Also, we have the VCSP best practices guide. Yeah, so bp.veeam.com/sp from service provider. First use case is the MSP one. It describes basically everything what I've said in this webinar today, but in way more details. All of the registry keys are there that you might need to apply, how to scale, how to deploy, how much CPU memory that is required to deploy the service. Everything is written right there. On the other hand, some of you might say, I don't really like to read, but I prefer to have a video. Yeah. Since videos are popular today, we also have our how-to series, and we have several playlists there. And the second playlist, as you can see from the left, is MSP backup. So if you want to see how things are installed, if you want to see how the entire VCSP pulse that I've shown in just 1 minute, if how that is configured, or you want to see how we can do something with billing and reporting, or set up a hardened Linux repository, it's all there in the videos. You can just look at the part that you are interested in, and then you're done, right? So please have a look there as well. Also, we have some helpful links and resources. Not going to go over all of them because it's not a reading exercise, but these are all of the resources that can definitely help you out further commercially, as well as technically, finding some great documents there. And then last but not least, I've mentioned this earlier, we have a VCSP competency program as well. So this is a program where actually service providers apply and say, hey, I'm offering a service here. I would like to be recognized. So you can receive a badge, and the badges are showing here on the screen. And then we will plan a session with you and technically validate your infrastructure to see if you can get this badge, right? So there is a customer ready. So when you work directly with end customers, there is also a reseller ready when you are channel focused. So when you are actually a service provider selling to other service providers, right? So you might have the entire Cloud Connect service provider console set up, and you say, okay, now service providers come to me and use this infrastructure, so you don't have to build it, that you're going to find in the reseller ready. So we have also an entire listing on the website. So if you're looking for a party to work with, then there is no cost. Yes, I see someone ask, is there a cost? No, there is no cost. The only cost is time, right? Your time and our time to technically validate, and that's it. The batch is entirely free, right? So definitely look up this VCSP competency program, or check with your channel manager on how you can get into this program. All right. So with further ado, and 1 minute left on the hour, let's see if there are some other questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for staying with us today. Again, apologize for the audio issues. It's always something, right? One day it works, one day it doesn't. That's just how it is. Apologies for that. Again, you will receive the recording. You will receive all of the slides. And if you have more questions, do not hesitate to reach out to your local sales rep or to your SE or technical account manager for any more information. So, but let's see if there are some other questions. Did we also have another exit poll? Well, let me just ask it in the chat like this while people are leaving maybe for lunch or to the next meeting. If there is any topic that you would like to see in any of the next webinars, like you say, wow, this was pretty high level. I would like to see how you really build this, how you really deploy it from scratch. Please write it in the chat and then we can work on that and we can create a webinar specifically on this topic. So we're always looking for requests from your side, what it is that you would like to see, and then we'll do our best to provide them. All right. We'll stick around for just a few more questions, but again, if you have to go, thanks again for this webinar. Have a nice day, happy holidays, soon happy New Year, and yeah, let's keep VCSPing, right? Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.